What is good, people? Welcome back to another video on 8 Count. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the UFC Fight Night, Kattar versus Emmett. I'm going to be giving you my reaction to the 3 biggest fights on the card. As always, if that's something you might be interested in, be sure to stick around. Leave a like on the video if you do enjoy it. Comment down below, let me know who you thought won the main event. I know it's quite a controversial one. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. And let's just get straight into it, I guess, guys. I think it was an absolutely amazing night of fights. I'm pretty sure it tied some sort of finishing records and stuff like that. But overall, I think it was an amazing weekend for combat sports. I thought the PFL put on a really good show as well from what I was watching of that. I think we should probably start with the main event. I think Kattar versus Josh Emmett was, you know, all in all, a really good main event. 2 really different sort of styles of fighting come together and clashing in the octagon. It was a super fun fight. I know it was quite a controversial one, the split decision going the way of Josh Emmett. You know, I've seen online a lot of people giving it in favour of Kattar, and they're not happy with the scorecards. For me, I wasn't really scoring it while I was watching it, but I thought both fighters had really good work, you know, in the fight. I thought Kattar showed off an amazing jab and, you know, some amazing skills on the front foot. And Josh Emmett, I thought, maybe did some of the more eye-catching sort of work. And yeah, I'm not really too fussed about the decision. I think it could have gone either way. And either fighters, well, there was going to be someone disappointed at the end of it because it was definitely close. But in terms of Josh Emmett, I mean, at his age and in such a competitive division, and when age really kind of plays a factor in a division, I think he looks really fucking good. I think his athleticism is, you know, setting him apart from some of the other fighters in this division. I think in this fight, you know, his defense came on leaps and bounds. I think on the outside at times I expected Kattar to have so much more success coming into the fight, but I think the head movement, footwork, and, you know, overall sort of speed and athleticism of Emmett did a really good job of keeping Kattar on his toes. I know he got busted up a little bit in the fight, but he looked really good to me. I think the fact that Kattar was so reliant on that jab in the fight, and he was throwing so many like sort of single shots, whereas, you know, Emmett was biding his time, and when he would come in, he was throwing 3 or 4 sort of shots at a time. I think that was probably, you know, some of the more eye-catching sort of stuff, and I'm pretty sure it would have swayed some of the judges' heads. For me, I really enjoyed the body shots of Josh Emmett. I think he definitely went away from him as the fight continued. When I was watching the fight, I could see at times when Kattar would kind of retreat out of range, you'd see him use more of like a Philly shell sort of defense. But when he was doing this, his, you know, like the right side of his body was very, very open. He wasn't, well, in my opinion, I don't think he was covering it exactly, you know, like you would see too many people in boxing. And I thought Emmett could have gone back to the well over and over again, but he really didn't. But when he did, I thought he was doing some great work. You know, I think in terms of both fighters having success in this fight, it came when they were really pushing the other one back. I think both guys, you know, kind of are reliant on being the fighter who is, you know, pushing the fight and dictating what sort of, you know, turn the fight is going to take, because I think both of them, despite having, you know, decent defense, I think Kattar showed he had decent defense as well, because Kattar was throwing a lot and he was blocking a lot. But I think both guys are reliant so heavily on their offense that they need to be on that front foot. And I think that was a telling point in the fight. You know, I was really impressed with both fighters. For me, I think, you know, MMA has kind of gone to a point where, I guess in fighting as well in general, I think the jab is one of the most underrated weapons in all of MMA. It's the first weapon you're taught. It's, you know, in my opinion, it is one of the better weapons inside, you know, combat sports. And I think Kattar is someone who relies on it and uses it extremely well. I think you could see in the fight he was using the sort of jab from different angles, where he'd be throwing an up jab or, you know, coming in on different angles, throwing the jab. And I thought, you know, throwing lighter jabs and harder jabs, I thought he was doing a great job with the jab. I definitely feel like the jab is disrespected and it's not given its credit, because obviously people talk about significant strikes. The jab obviously isn't one of those. And I don't know. I'm wondering, you know, with this scoring system, is the jab ever going to be something we look at and score? Because I think it should be. I think the jab is a weapon that people underestimate in terms of the damage it can cause. You could see Josh Emmett's eye was absolutely mangled up, and it's not getting the respect as it deserves, in my opinion. I would like to see some sort of change in the fact of, the jab is used for a lot of things, but when it's used like Calvin Kattar did it, it's a scoring strike for me, and I think it was a bit disrespected. But I guess now it comes to the point where Josh Emmett won a fight. What's he going to get next? Is he going to get the title fight? Is he going to get the winner of Ortega versus Rodriguez? Rodriguez, sorry. I think it really depends on what happens in the title fight between Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. I think both fighters, coming into that fight, there's a lot of pressure for the rest of the division. I think, if Volk kind of wins the fight and he can just shut the book on Holloway, I think that's probably the best sort of result for a lot of these fighters in the division. I think you look at the likes of Emmett and Kattar not having fought Volkanovski. I think that opens the door for both of these sort of guys. Obviously, Emmett now at the front of the room for that. I think in terms of Ortega versus Rodriguez, Ortega's already fought him, but if Rodriguez is to win, he's going to get a matchup potentially with Volkanovski because they haven't fought. And in terms of the Holloway fight, the likes of Kattar, Ortega already fought in him, so I do think it is important, to see who the winner of this fight is. Is he deserving of this sort of title fight? I think in terms of Josh Emmett, it's not really about if he deserves it or not. I think it's a matter of he needs a shot now. I think at the place he is in his career, he's showing, that he's actually coming into his prime, into his later years. And I think he's definitely got some sort of techniques, and, I think some of the decision making he makes could definitely give the winner of either fight, some certain troubles for sure. I think if you look at the two guys in the title fight, how does he match up with Volkanovski and Holloway? I do think the fact of his wrestling being at the level it is, I think that gives him some sort of advantage which some of these other guys who have fought them definitely don't. And I think the fact that his wrestling is so good, like you saw in the Kattar fight, it gives him that little extra something on the feet, and that's what makes him so dangerous, because he isn't just a wrestler with a right hand, he's much more than that. And the fact he's able to, threaten you with the wrestling, it makes so many more of the other techniques that this guy throws on the feet so much more dangerous. And I really cannot wait to see if Emmett gets his shot. I think if he does, I would like to see it be against Volkanovski. I think Volkanovski's probably the more well-rounded of the two between, Volkan Max. And I think Max is heavily underrated on the ground, but I just think the wrestling game of Volkanovski is one of the higher levels, so I would like to see that. I do think on the feet, Volkanovski would give Emmett a lot of problems, like he gives everybody, but it's still a fight I would like to see. So yeah, I think that I think Emmett is probably deserving of the shot. You look at the guys that Volk has beaten, I think he is a bit different to some of those people. For Kattar now, I think he's got to take a reset. For me, I think it's more about him fighting to the style of the judges. I think he's got to be a more aggressive fighter, and he's got to throw more behind the jab. I think at times in the fight, he was, I guess, just willing to throw the jab, and he wasn't backing it up with anything. And I think if he backs it up with stuff in the future, he's going to probably have more success when it comes to the judges' scorecards. I think, at times in the fight, he was a little bit reluctant to throw, and I don't think he did a bad job in the fight at all. I just think if MMA is like this at the moment and the scoring criteria isn't necessarily correct, or I guess you could say it isn't fair, I guess you got to fight towards the judges. I saw Joanne Calderwood's husband talking about it, and how they are now fighting not the style that they think is going to give her the most success in the fight, but the style which is more, I guess you could say judge friendly. And I think that's the way MMA is going at the moment. We'll move on now to Tim Means against Kevin Holland. Coming into this fight, I did think that Tim Means was, a good underdog on the card. I thought he was the sort of guy who could give Holland problems. I did expect Holland to win, though. I thought his movement would really be too much for Means, and his striking would be too dynamic. In terms of how the fight actually went, I thought that the actual movement of Kevin Holland wasn't what I thought. I thought he'd be using a lot more lateral movement, but seems to be pretty confident in his ability to strike on the feet with anyone in this welterweight division. And I thought at times he was taking a few risks, but I thought he looked really good in this fight, to be honest, guys. I think he's got this sort of style where he throws his strikes from, sort of like awkward, different angles all the time. And for me, people talk about the power of Kevin Holland, and I don't actually think it's the power, because you look at 185, he's a lot smaller than the people there in that division, and he was knocking them the fuck out. I really think it is the fact that he's got such, good hand speed and stuff like that. But I think it's the accuracy of his strikes. He always seems to land on target, and he's a really dangerous guy wherever the fight takes place on the feet for anyone in this welterweight division. I think, for me, Holland is coming into his own now in the UFC. I think he had a great run at middleweight where he took out some legends. Then he fought the top of the division, and I think he was proving that he isn't on that level, when it comes to the middleweights. And I think that's fair enough. I think he actually looks really good at this welterweight frame. It's going to be interesting to see how far he can go. I think for Means in this fight, I think what kind of cost him was his defense. I think you could see for Holland, the target was pretty easy. I think Tim Means didn't really have that sort of head movement, which is going to give anyone trouble. He was pretty, just coming in on a straight line, and his head was always in the same place. And I think for Holland, if you're that sort of person, you're going to have trouble because of how accurate he is. I really think it's going to be hard to not see Kevin Holland beating some really good ranked fighters in the UFC. How far can he go exactly? I'm not sure. I'm not too sure if he is someone who's capable of winning this welterweight title fight. If he was to get it, I think he's going to have to go on a run, which is going to be extremely hard. And I expect him to pick up quite a few wins, but I'm pretty sure he's going to pick up a few losses as well. I'm not sure what sort of level he is in this welterweight division, but I think we're going to find out pretty soon. He called out Sean Brady, who, in my opinion, is, the worst stylistic matchup for him in this division, I guess you could say. I think if he gets a hold of Holland, Holland could be in trouble. I thought Holland's defensive wrestling looked really good in this fight. But I think it's one thing doing it against Tim Means, who, no disrespect, is still a great fighter, but I think Sean Brady, a fighter who's coming into his physical prime, someone who, ragdolls people the way he does, I think it's a really tough fight. And I think it kind of just shows the levels of sort of confidence and not giving a shit, I guess, Kevin Holland has, because to call out Sean Brady, in no time, it takes so much balls, man. And I think a lot of people would shy away from that sort of fight. But I'm happy he's kind of calling for it, because I think for him it is the worst stylistic matchup. But if he can get through that, it's going to, put a rocket ship up his ass straight to the top of this welterweight division. So that'll be really interesting to see. The next fight I want to talk about, guys, is Adrian Yanez defeating Tony Kelly, in which was a hell of a, barn burner to open up the main card. For me, I think Yanez is one of these guys who's really come into his own since joining UFC. He's a guy who's really kept active, and, I know he's fought at the Apex a lot of times and he hasn't really had that fan reception, but I think it was shown, even though he was in his hometown, the reaction he got was absolutely amazing. And I think that's only because of his, not only the fact that he is from, in his hometown fighting, but I think it's, a matter of the fact that he is busy, he is consistent, and he's been absolutely lighting people up on this UFC Fight Night sort of run he's been on. For me, I'm a big fan of Yanez. I think his style is one which is super fun, and I think if you're trying to get someone into the sport, I think if you give him an Adrian Yanez fight, that's certainly a fight which is going to make him a fan. I think his style is one which is extremely easy on the eyes, and it makes MMA a lot of fun while he's fighting. You look at him now; he's 28. He gets a first round knockout TKO victory over Kelly, who I think was kind of underrated coming into this. I think all the sort of problems that Kelly's had with the quotes about Brazil and stuff like that, I think kind of overshadowed the fact that he is a decent fighter and he could give Yanez problems. And I think at times he did give Yanez problems. I think Yanez took a lot of risks in the fight. I think, You know, I think he was so confident in his ability to knock out Kelly, but he was willing to take a couple just to get the job done. I think in terms of how the fight went, I think you're seeing that his boxing is leaps and bounds above some of these guys in the bantamweight division. I'm pretty sure he is someone that's going to be fighting ranked guys really soon. You know, after the fight, he was calling out Sugar Sean O'Malley. I think that's a sort of fight which is not only going to give him the respect because he's calling out someone who's got a big name, but it's why people like this guy. He doesn't really care. He's in there to fight. And for me, the fact he's got this sort of persona which makes him so likable, he's got the, you know, super fun fighting style, and he's only 28 years old. I think this guy's a potential star for the UFC. You know, no sort of bullshit. He's just a really good fighter. I think he could definitely be a star. I think if he can get a hold of Sugar Sean, the Sugar Show, I think it's going to be an interesting fight. First of all, Sugar's got to beat Munoz in a fight which I think is definitely a hard one for O'Malley. I could see this fight going two ways. The grit and toughness of Munoz really pulling him through the fight and him getting some sort of finish on O'Malley. Or I could see Sean going out there, his movements levels and heads and levels above Munoz, and he just puts on a show and finishes him. I do think Yanez is a sort of fighter who would give O'Malley problems. I think he'd put O'Malley on the back foot straight away, and I think he would hunt him down and look for the knockouts or blow. I do think that he would be a problem for someone like that. I don't actually think the fight should happen yet. I do think that these guys are still, you know, sort of young stars. O'Malley, what is he, maybe like 26, and Yanez 28. I think you can match them up in the future and it could be an interesting fight. For now, I'd just like to see him get someone ranked straight away in this bantamweight division, and I think he'd put on a show. He's definitely someone that if you haven't been following his fights, you go check out his last ones. You know, all that. I'm pretty sure the UFC Apex, seeing them fight the likes of Davey Grant, some really fun fights, so be sure to check that out, guys. Anyway, that's the end of the video, guys. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like, comment down below, let me know how you scored the main event, and subscribe to your channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. I'm not really sure what video I'm going to do this week now. Obviously, we got Gamrot versus Sayukian. But I'm not too sure if people are too interested in seeing me do a reaction on that video. So we'll wait and see. But anyway, guys, have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Take care.